Let's talk X's and O's. Or to be more specific, X's. I've had some interesting breakups. Some phenomenal breakups, if I'm gonna be honest. Um, and I've had, I guess, I've had 4 relationships in my lifetime that were worth anything, that were worth counting. I could go back farther, but we'll skip the middle school, that stuff for today. Um, what I wanted to talk about here was, and I wanted to add this one later, I had a high school girlfriend my senior year. We'll start there. And dated this girl for a month. And I remember it started getting hot and heavy, and like, it was like, maybe we were gonna have sex, or that kind of stuff was starting to come up, and it freaked me out. And so I walked up to this girl and I was like, hey, you know what? Like, our whole relationship is just based on making out in the halls in between classes. There's just, like, we have nothing in common. We don't know anything about each other. This is it. I'm just gonna break this off. And the girl was like, alright, that's cool. And I remember her friend, the next day I'm walking down the hall, I was like, cool. I was walking and I passed her best friend, who we'd all hung out together, and she's like, oh, you're cool or whatever. And she just, we're walking by, and the girl I was dating is with her best friend. And her best friend just goes right in my face and walks by, and I turned to the girl and I was like, hey, and she's like, hey, like, whatever, she's overprotective. And so that, if we're not counting 8th grade stuff, starts my breakup career. And I guess that's not where my breakup career started, but before then's a story for another day. So, fast forward a few years, I start dating this girl. I'm 20. And now I end up dating this girl for 6 months. And so I turned 21 when I'm dating this girl. So I'm 21 now. I was 20 when we started dating. And I had to go on the road to work. And this girl, she texts me. And I'm going from Michigan to New York, and it's a 9-hour car ride. And she texts me and she goes, I took a pregnancy test today. And so I responded and I was like, yeah. Like, alright, and she was like, her response was like, yeah. And so I'm like, what the fuck? What? Like, elaborate? But in the back of my mind, and this is me being young and dumb, is I was like, this girl is only trying to get me to call her. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna call her. I know all she's doing is trying to get me to call her. I'm not gonna do it. And I was like, and so we keep driving, and it's a 9-hour car ride, and this is like 2 hours into it. So now we're 5 or 6 hours, and we're just like going back and forth with nothingness conversations. Like, oh, so you took a pregnancy test? Like, yep, I did, and dot dot dot. And she'd reply with like, yep. And so in the end, we get to the hotel in New York, and she's like, and she's like, well, it came back and I'm not pregnant after like 7 hours. And I went like a couple more days or a couple weeks or whatever it was, and I was like, you know what? That's super messed up. I was like, hey. And it wasn't working anyway, but I was like, that was what I used. I was like, you know what? That's how I justified it in my head. I didn't tell her that. I was like, hey, it's just not working. But in my head, I was like, yeah, you faked pregnancy for 7 hours? And so I was like, so that was my first real relationship as an adult. The next one, and I always seem to go off of 2-year cycles, and this is the only really other one I can tell you with a story, but is I'm dating this girl, and it's a rocky start, this relationship. Not between us, but just this girl. Good girl, nice girl, beautiful. But I dated her because my friend was like so ecstatic. Like, I had a party, and this girl, she slept in my bed because there was nowhere to sleep. We didn't do anything. She needed somewhere to sleep, so I was like, you can go here. I set her with her own pillow, her own blanket, her own separate space. I was like, you're alright. And I left her. In fact, I didn't even sleep there hardly till the end of the night. Like, she was there for 4 hours before I even went to bed. So I wake up in the morning, and my body is just blown away. Like, oh, this girl slept in your bed? Like, oh, like, she's the most beautiful girl in the world. I can't believe it. And as stupid as it is, I ended up, it was for more than this, but a lot of the reason I ended up dating this girl is because of my buddy's reaction to how high he thought she was and how cool he thought she was. And so I ended up dating this girl anyways. And we ended up dating for 3 months, and this girl is just a terror. Just a mean-spirited person, just horrible to people, she loved being the authority, if that makes sense. Like, she was always, like, if someone was doing something wrong, even if it wasn't a big deal, like, I can't even think of an example, but she would cut that person off and be like, no, you're not doing that, or whatever, and just be horrible to the person, even if they weren't doing anything that bad. But she would just, like, any opportunity to just get in someone's face, I guess, she took it up, and it was just kind of a bad person. But, everyone's got their things. I don't want to cut someone down. I'm sure she's a good person. It's just, in my experience, for those 3 months, all those years ago, I was like, hey, I'm not going to date someone like this. And so I had that mindset. And we broke up once, and she was so upset that I was like, alright, maybe I jumped to a conclusion. Let's try to work this out. Like, we haven't been dating that long. Let's give it another go. So I take her to this wedding with my friends. And the bride at the wedding wants to set me up with her maid of honor. which I have a date at this wedding, and this just turned into a disaster. So I'm sitting there, and the girl I'm dating goes outside to smoke, and I'm talking to family members or whatever, and the bride comes up and she goes, "Brett, come dance with me." And I was like, "It's the bride of the wedding." And I was like, "All right." So she she grabs me, so I get up and I go with her, drag me out to the dance floor, but I'm not resisting. It's the bride. So I'm like, "All right." So I start dancing, and she immediately gets me to the dance floor and has my arm and turns to her maid of honor and grabs her like this and shoves us together. So I'm like, boom, and now I'm in the middle of the dance floor with this maid of honor. And hindsight's 2020. I should have just went nope and turned and been like, "Hey, I'm here with my girlfriend. I shouldn't dance with you. Hey, goodbye." But my mindset was, you know what? It's not that big deal. I'm out here. We'll dance. Not like we're slow dancing or anything. And we're just dancing, and I'll try to get you by the group. And so I'm trying to she's dancing with me, and I'm trying to get us to get over to the group. So we're dancing as a whole. All right, come on. I'm trying to be nice. I don't want to be mean. Let's go. And at one point during this song, I look over and I see my girlfriend at the time, and she's just sitting there just staring at me, just smoke coming out of her ears. And I'm still trying to be no, we're dancing with the whole group. This is just the worst situation I could be in. And so the song ends, and I'm like, "All right, high five, see you later," out of there. And I come back around, and the girlfriend's like, "What the hell was that?" And I was like, "Hey, the bride dragged me out there. I don't know. I was just dancing. It's not that big a deal." Which is not the right thing to say, because then she's like, "Not that big a deal? Not that big a deal?" Keep your voice down. We're in the middle of a wedding. There's people all around. And somehow, when I was saying that, she goes, "Oh, are you calling me crazy?" And so I look at her, I was like, no, I'm not calling you crazy. I'm just saying, relax. And she's like, "You're calling me crazy." I was like, "No, I'm not." She's like, "Yeah, call me crazy." I was like, "No." She goes, "Call me crazy." It's like, "Stop." She goes, "Call me crazy." And it became this, she was cutting me off so I couldn't talk. And it was just her going, "Call me crazy, call 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 me crazy." And I'm sitting there going no, trying to get a word in, just listen to me for a second. And finally she's going, "Call me crazy, call me crazy, call me crazy." And finally I looked at her and went, "You're fucking crazy." And she turned and just walked straight out of there and out the door, and never saw her again. Yeah. That was a weird night. But that one lasted 3 months. And I think that bride helped me dodge a bullet. Possibly. I don't know. What do you think? And then the last one, I can't tell you about it. I suppose it's not too fresh anymore, but I suspect she watches these videos sometimes, because she knows about it. So I'm going to leave her out for now. But yeah. Stay classy, San Diego.